Hey y'all, welcome back to Mighty Multimedia. This is another reviews, and this is episode 7. So this was pretty good. I like this slate that we have today. There's a lot of new stuff, which is always good, at least good for clickbait and views and everything. There is some older stuff mixed in, which will be fun to touch on. Probably won't touch on it in quite detail, but yeah, good new shows and everything. Let's get into it. So our first review today is Amazon Prime's Gen V. It is set in the same universe as the well-known and pretty critically acclaimed show The Boys, which is also based off a comic book. This has its roots in some comics as well, but as the other show The Boys does, takes a lot of liberties. But it's very in the same vein. The real over-the-top violence and everything certainly critiques on the modern superhero as well as our modern world. I do want to say, so it's different. It's absolutely different. It's not the same thing as Boys, and it shouldn't be. It's not a spin-off, I wouldn't say, but it's just another entry into this universe, and another cast of characters, another corner of this universe, which is good, expanding everything there. But Gen V it gets better, at least at the beginning, but still the overall plot, I do gotta say, it has a lot of teen angst. I don't know kind of genre you want to put that in, but it's similar to your Riverdales, your 13 Reasons Why. The general plot being that the popular person, or just someone well known, or really a person in general, I suppose, dies or kills himself or has a tragedy, and then old characters that know them really well and new characters that are sort of your ride-along characters mixed together have to figure out the murder and uncover deep dark secrets along the way, and they learn they don't know everyone they think they know exactly as well. So 13 Reasons Why had Hannah Grace's suicide and then went off of that. Riverdale had the twins, the Blossom twins at the beginning. They figured it out. Same thing, these new characters, old characters, all mixing together. Very same formula. I would say this one does it to better effect in general. It also is not near as angsty and grimdark and cringe, you might say, as some of these other ones. It gets better, and I think it's more thematic and well put together. So for Gen V, following this kind of formula here, Marie Monroe comes in. She's the new kid at the superhero college. She is our ride-along character. We're seeing a lot of stuff through her eyes, although it diverges a lot. It's certainly not just her, but she kind of incites it. And then the big incident of violence, accident, murder, suicide, whatever from those other ones, is the suicide of Golden Boy. That's a superhero name. And by the very on the nose title there, he is the prodigal child of this university. I think they say a few times that he could be the next Homelander, or even better than Homelander. He gets into a fight with his professor that he knows and stuff, and then he flies up in the air and blows himself up because he has fire powers or glittering, something like that, incendiary type powers. And his best friend is there, his girlfriend is there, other friends, people he knows, people he doesn't like, teachers, everything. And our new ride-along character, Marie Monroe, they don't know what happened. This is the mystery. This mystery is pretty damn cool, I would say. Again, it's similar to some of those other more teen angsty shows, but it's done well here. And then at the very beginning, actually, there's a kid who is who's running around really dangerous, breaking stuff up, and the police end up apprehending him. You learn later, just kind of running through the beginning of this plot, that this is the brother of Golden Boy. He's been in something called the Woods underneath the college, where he has been tested on and experimented on. He's kind of off. But this really ties into why Golden Boy did what he did, and again adds more intrigue into this plot. I really like the actor, I think more specifically, but also the character of Sam. So that's the Golden Boy's brother, who gets found and eventually broken out of the woods. They're all actually, I suppose at the very beginning, they seem like a bunch of jerks for the most part, and self-centered and stuff. But really, pretty early on, you start to see that they're mostly normal people. And they really established some super likable characters, which is not too par for the course in the boys' universe, trying something a little bit different. I think there's something to be said that these people are younger, so they haven't been corrupted by the world. And you see throughout the progression of the story some of these characters be corrupted by the world and all the terrible things that they have to witness and go through, betrayals and such. So this is obviously a superhero centered show. I do want to touch on the powers. So if you're just talking about the powers, just listen to the powers that I'm going to give you, right? So one is she cuts her wrist and can control the blood coming up and use that. One is that this girl can throw up and she becomes small, or she can eat a lot and become big. Another one is mind wiping guy, kind of. And I mean, that's not too in this category, but he uses it to basically rape a bunch of people. And the other one is a character that switches back and forth between two genders, and they're Asian too. And both the male and the woman version have different powers. Not super defined, to be honest, but different powers. Again, very on the nose, obviously, for some social issues with suicide and bulimia and anemia, and rape. And there's actually another character who is pretty mind control-y as well. And then the other one with gender issues and gender identity and such. So it's really trying to tackle a lot of headline and big ticket items. It does it really in your face, really fast, really unashamedly. I don't have a problem with it. It is so obvious, but it doesn't take away from anything too much. I definitely wanted to note it because there's just no way of getting around it. Give it a few plot points just to kind of, drag it out, show how it's dramatic and there's some twists and turns. The best friend of Golden Boy, he's the black kid with like Magneto powers. Turns out he is having sex and has been having sex with Golden Boy's girlfriend. And then they all kind of get their minds erased as they get closer to the truth. And it turns out it is the girlfriend of Golden Boy, because she was taking medicine to suppress her powers given her by the headmistress of the university. Turns out she's behind everything, more intrigue. But the not taking the medicine is getting her powers are expanding and getting stronger. So she's this blowout. All the kids get sucked into her mind. It's really cool. They go through really traumatic experiences from each of them. That's actually really well done. Jensen Ackles comes back as Soldier Boy, as an imaginary friend, just kind of be a guide and do some fun things. It's really fast, so don't expect much. I think they were kind of hyping that up in the promos. And it's not that deep. It's very brief, but it is cool. And they get out. Just really, really moving. Of course, there is some really nasty, gross things because we are in the boys' universe again. And I am thinking when I watch the boys or Gen V here, just how crazy it would be to be, like a prop or CGI or anything involved with the visuals worker for any of these shows. Just must get the craziest requests. There's all the type of these things, blowing up heads and just violently killing people and doing a lot of weird sex things, I think, for the most part. This one, the big ones, the two big ones, I guess, are one, you're getting these requests. I need you to make a really large penis and I need a little tiny girl to jump up and play with it. Like, you need freaking what? And then the other one is, I need you to blow up a guy's penis. Is that cool? Can you do that? You think you can manage that? What a job, right? I mean, just doing crazy thing after crazy thing. Hopefully they're having fun. Hopefully they're getting well compensated for the wildness and unpredictability of their job. But there is certainly some more of that aspect here. I've heard it's been released that this season of Gen V leads almost directly into the next season of Boys, and then that season of The Boys leads almost directly into the next season of Gen V. So really tying up and integrating this universe. But I mean, I thought I saw the bridge, I guess, at the beginning. I think it still is a part of the bridge, at least. Where in the woods, the reason that they've been experimenting on all these soups is that they are trying to get a virus that can't kill soups. The doctor doesn't really know this, but the headmistress, I guess, has some some trauma where her I think it's her husband and her kid were killed by Homelander back on the plane from the beginning, the early days of The Boys, which is a pretty fascinating little tie-in. So she hates soups. She wants to do this, and you clearly see. I mean, that's ratcheting up the tension, right? Butcher has been looking for this entire time, basically, for something to kill Soldier Boy. So here's something that actually could work, and you're doing it kind of the backdoor pilot in there. They'll probably explain it in the Boys universe, but it does seem to be tied up pretty, pretty undoubtedly, right? Unavoidably. You can't, again, they'll probably make it possible, but it would be difficult to watch the next season of The Boys without seeing this new episode of Gen V. And then, so I liked a lot of this show. I really did. The ideas weren't too unique or anything. A lot of it was the execution. The actors that they got were really good, and the way they did a lot of these was tight and real. To this kind of environment of college, and then the natural ramifications of having these superheroes, mostly the media and them being conceited and messed up in the head and such, the fear from other humans. Same idea as The Boys, but The Boys are done really well also. But then we get to the last episode, where I don't know what happened. I just said that I liked the acting of of all of them, really, in the rest of the show, but it just went down the drain in the last episode. I don't know what was happening. I just saw them be good actors, so I think it's more the script and the direction and such. But people just go off the rails. They establish some of the reasons, but it's just odd, and there's all of these cuts. It seems like there should have been more, and they're really stuffing it into this last episode here. The blonde chick, Golden Boy's girlfriend, goes absolutely insane. The medications makes himself some sense. Sam goes with her and goes nuts and just start killing people. They release the people from the woods. Everyone starts killing everyone. It makes sense, I suppose, again, that Sam would do this. It just seemed a little odd. He was making a lot of progress. I guess that's what you do, right? It's all about subverting expectations at the beginning. Golden Boy establishing this really awesome, heroic, good-looking, poised, smooth-talking character, and then killing him, taking him off the board immediately. Subverting expectations. Same thing with Sam. With the shrinking girl, they were really having a connection, and she was really trying to help him, and he completely just let loose. He went to some rally for 2 seconds. I'm sure he's really impressionable. His mind's shattered in absolute shambles. But just utter nonsense. And nonsense and chaos can be a useful tool, but in this it just was unfettered and didn't serve a whole lot of purpose. Things were just happening. You were just watching chaos. There's a little few pieces that get together. Marie really starts figuring out her powers to a certain extent. But I'm just not a fan. I really think the last one was just garbage, I want to say, unfortunately. The actual bridge to the next show comes at the very, very end. Homelander just swoops in, and he just says, "Stop, don't kill your own kind," something like that, because they're doing some kind of white supremacist analog, it seems to be there, and he stops everything. More spoiler alerts, the main characters, Marie, the person who changes between genders, Black with magnetic powers, and the shrinking girl. I guess I'm not doing well with names here. I definitely know the names. I should remember these, but it's okay. They all wake up in like a Wallace room. Don't know what's gonna happen. They'll figure it out. But they show Butcher, and he finds out about the virus, so that's gonna play in. So some of it was just a backdoor pilot of shoving these things in there. But hopefully all these characters from Gen V are eventually, put into it in a prominent role and figured out, because these are actual good characters. They're actual good people for the most part. They want to be heroes. Maybe you could say they haven't been corrupted yet, but as of now, they're not corrupted. So maybe we could see them, forming, going with Starlight and everyone and really fighting back against Homelander and some of the more heinous villains at Vought. That would be pretty fascinating. So some of this, I'm more interested in the implications than the actual show. But a lot of this was really fun. I don't think it surpassed The Boys. I think it started out pretty strong and meandered out. But either way, another good piece, probably, if not essential, really important to watching The Boys and continuing that narrative. Amazon Prime continues to put out good things, so as long as they keep doing it, I'll keep watching. Our next review is another well-known and pretty popular property in a new show form. This is the MCU's Loki Season 2. I think it had a lot of really high expectations. I mean, Loki Season 1 had a lot of people entranced and fully on board. I think it's probably, a shining point, a high point in a lot of Marvel's shows. A lot of them haven't really impressed, unfortunately. But Loki was pretty cool, drew a lot of people in, which is interesting because a lot of the other shows were more well-known characters. Not all of them, but some of them were more really well-known characters, and they just fell flat. They weren't using them as well. I don't know, should have just made movies in some case. But aside from that, that's off track. We're talking about Loki here. Just going to start off chronologically. The first episode did not impress whatsoever. Not a good place to start. It really felt like they were washing away basically the end of season 1. It seemed like they maybe changed their mind in between filming, in pre-production there, and wanted to go a different direction. They brought it back a little bit at the end, but all this time slipping and Loki showing up at this place that was now devoted to Kang and everything, and Owen Wilson not knowing who he was. They really just kind of did a bunch of nonsense and just hand-waved stuff and said, forget about that, that's not what we're doing. And then went on to something new. I enjoy what they went on to for the most part, so I will forgive some of it, but it was pretty obvious that could have been a smoother transition. Again, in the first episode and really in the early episodes as well, aside from the plot, the acting wasn't great. I don't know, the acting was particularly good in the first season, and it does get better, to be honest, as this season goes by. So some of it maybe just throwing off some rust and kind of figuring out, again, these guys coming back to each other. Owen Wilson's holding down the fort. I think he's really good as he normally is. But, even Tom Hiddleston and some of the other guys just really wooden and awkward. Some of it has to be a byproduct of the plot. Introduce OB is a pretty fun character. He's super quirky, but I like him. He's really great. And then we get into the variant of He Who Remains, Kang, Mortis, whatever you want to call him. This one is Victor Timely. He has a stutter, and he was back in the early 1900s. He's an inventor. That gets pretty interesting, and he does a really good job, Jonathan Majors, there. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Majors does a good job with that kind of the stuttering performance of Victor Timely as well, and he goes back and he's able to be he who remains later on. I don't know, I mean, I'm not an actor, but stuttering, that purposeful stutter, can be kind of difficult, I would think. And he does a really excellent job of it, I think, in the most part. It's not too obvious and it's not too forced or anything. It's kind of that really right amount. Going into some of the mechanics, I think I was confused about this at the last time, but it really only actually came into play near the end of the show. But the mechanics of the timelines are a little confusing, right? I mean, so there's different people on each one of them. I mean, it's just a multiverse, right? These whole threads and timelines. Are they really even timelines? And it's kind of an odd. It's really visual, and when the visual is a little confusing, that can be tough. could have just kind of explained it conceptually, and that's good. But the visuals were necessary for what they were doing. But so there's people in all of them. You know, it matters whether you think that people should be, the timeline should be pruned or whatever, but I mean, when you're working that high up as you do in government or something like that, you know, those are, you gotta think about them as more numbers, I guess, is sort of the idea. And also, it's gotta be completely unmeasured. I mean, isn't it infinite? You know, I mean, isn't every time a person makes a new decision or whatever, there's a new timeline created? Or, I mean, is that not how it works? Is there a set amount of times, you know, there's those events that they talk about that are really arbitrary? Is that what does it, I suppose? But even so, every new timeline would still have new events that would make new ones. It's still infinite. No? A little confused about that. They could have done a little bit better. But the Marvel's multiverse has been pretty confusing from movie to movie with Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home and stuff. I think they should tighten it up. They need to give us some rules and some boundaries. What is actually going on? You know, what are the how far can you stretch it? Who's on who? What's the interplay? It needs to be more well established, because if you don't, it's going to get really complicated really soon with different producers and actors in movies telling different stories using the same kind of mechanic there. Continuing along, running through a few more pieces, right? They get Victor Timely, Renslayer's trying to get him back, Sylvie's trying to kill him, a lot of back and forth. Miss Minutes gets weird. Miss Minutes is with Renslayer and Victor Timely, and it's kind of creepy. She wants a body because she is in love with he who remains, everything like that. Pretty odd, getting a little creepy there, but I guess that's what an AI does when it comes to life. It's gotta want a body at some point, right? The romantic tensions, the romantic feelings, maybe not, but I guess they wanted to throw that in there. Sylvie just offs Renslayer, which is pretty whack. I mean, I guess Renslayer really hunted her down and killed a lot of people, really diametrically opposed, so do what you want, but that was just very sudden, tossing her aside. Interesting move there. And then after some more nonsense happens, they're trying to stop the loom. They have Timely, they have OB, they have other characters. Everything blows up. Loki is okay because he's got the, what do they call it? Time, it doesn't matter. He's like moving around in time or something. Time skips. And he goes around and finds all of his friends, Owen Wilson and OB and everything. They're all living different lives, and he has to collect them. Sylvie remembers for some reason. I don't know, did they explain why she remembered and no one else did? Whatever, maybe she's a Loki, I don't know. But getting them together it takes a long time, but it's meaningful, finding them in their jobs and everything. That's pretty good, to be honest. So they're all in one place, and they're trying to figure this out. This is the last kind of hurrah. Everything is falling apart no matter what they're doing. It just ain't working. They try a lot of things. There is so many different avenues and attempts that they make. It is it's exhausting, kind of, but it's fascinating. And then talk about trying a bunch of different times. They get into this Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow, whatever you want to call it, just repeating the same day over and over and over again, but getting the nuances and the steps of every day, and working with the knowledge that you had the last time you attempted, and building up and figuring out how to do it. Like knowing what someone says before they do, and knowing what the plan is so you can do it earlier and you have more time, knowing what not to do because those were the mistakes that you made in the past, and able to streamline the effect. Loki does this. I guess it's kind of implied that he spends centuries learning physics and engineering and such, so he can, before anyone has this idea, just figure out how to build this little compartment that goes into the loom to figure it out there. It's good. It's done to really good effect, to be honest. It's a time travel movie, so it can do this. I think this is totally within its allowable arsenal. And there's a really cool montage of them going through everything, trying all the effects. Sometimes that can be kind of awkward, but this does it well. And then in the end, that doesn't even work. All of that, apparently, centuries of work. He does everything as well as he possibly can, and they just tell him all of your work is absolutely for nothing. It's a scaling problem because it's infinite. I guess he does say it's infinite right there. But okay, if it wouldn't you know it was infinite, or wouldn't you think it was infinite? My first idea would be that it's infinite. So for some really smart people, they probably should have figured that out earlier. The next step after that doesn't work is going back to the first season when Sylvie kills he who remains, and I don't know, saying Voldemort or something else. I don't know there. Jonathan Majors gets to stretch his acting chops a little bit more here, and on repeat. So he says, if you need to stop me, you're gonna have to kill me. If you want to stop me, you're gonna have to kill me. Chilling says it over and over and over again. He who remains gives him some, you're this is meaningless. You're not going to be able to defeat this. I'm inevitable, kind of, just do it. Don't worry about it. It's just not going to happen. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it keeps coming back to this. It looks like he's going to have to kill Sylvie if he wants the universe to survive, a really impossible choice. And then I was really worried that all of this Groundhog Day stuff, and going further and further back in time, when we were in the middle of it, that basically everything that we did, at least probably the second season, didn't really matter. And some of it didn't. But it was all really about Loki's journey, Loki's growth, right? His whole line, again, a little bit on the nose, but I appreciated it. I know what kind of God I want to be. I know what God I need to be, I think it might be. So he realized that he needs to sacrifice himself. There's no other way to do it. I mean, the other way to do it, I guess, is to kill Sylvie and let he who remains run the sacred timeline. But he's not about that, because he still have the whole idea of he doesn't want to kill all these people that have their lives. So he finds a sweet spot of sacrificing himself, and he goes into the loom, and I don't know exactly what he does, but he just puts all the multiversal strands together into harmony. I guess he just kind of balances it so that they can live together. They pull out, and it's the Idrisil. It's the tree of life, whatever you want to call it. Which I get, that was the root of the multiverse, something like that. I remember in the comics. So that's cool. That's a fun little throwback, little Easter egg there. But yeah, he just pulls it all together, and I guess he's what is now holding the multiverse together, which is still relatively fragile, I would think. But at least he solved the problem, or he at least put a pause on the danger for now, which is good. I saw something on the internet that Loki's sacrifice was greater than Iron Man, Tony Stark's, at the end of Endgame. I don't know. I guess Tony Stark saved his world, and half the world. I guess Thanos was gonna reboot the whole thing, so he saved his world. But Loki saved the multiverse, I guess, and he's not just dead. He has to sit there. He opened his eyes, so presumably he's conscious. He's a god, so he's used to living a long time, but it's just, I don't know if he's actively doing anything, but he at least has to stay there, presumably, which is a pretty big sacrifice, just solitude and, foregoing all other wants and desires and passions and stuff. So maybe, I don't know, you be the judge there, whether that's a bigger sacrifice or not. At the end of this season, I am a little confused on what exactly transpired, but it was a pretty emotional, impactful ending, at least for the character of Loki, who has really gone through a lot and really, really changed in this. Really, it's not even the Loki who actually changed in the Marvel Universe at the end, who died in Endgame. It's the one that they plucked from the end of the first Avengers movie. Not that matters too much. But it's even more of a change, I suppose, right? So that was pretty cool that they were able to take that character and do a real study. All of the other, Owen Wilson going to see his family, I guess, a little bit. I don't know really how he jumps in there. But I guess they can just do some time travel shenanigans. And everyone's kind of figuring it out. the big thing, I guess, is we have a multiverse at the MCU, right? I mean, like that was ever really in doubt. But the timeline of not timeline talking about multiverse, but the chronological timeline of movies and shows with the multiverse is a little interesting, right? Because I guess at the end of Loki, the multiverse was happening, it exploded. And then, I mean, we had multiverse adventures in Doctor Strange 2 and Spider-Man Far From Home. Is that after Loki season 1, or now is it after Loki season 2? Maybe 2, because this is now we're just in the multiverse. And Doctor Strange figured that out or knew some of it. Multiverse is always hard, but we're in the multiversal phase now, I guess. It's kind of good to just get this out of the way. We're going back and forth, will they, won't they, with the multiverse in Loki. We all knew that there was going to be a multiverse because of the nature of some of the movies that we've already seen and some of the movies that we will see, like Secret Wars and such. I'm glad they just did it, to be honest. I just want to move on and see what we're going to do with these multiversal movies. Some of them could be good. Deadpool 3 is coming up next year, I think. That's a multiversal movie. Super excited about that. And there's some other good ones. We'll see how Captain America 4 is, but I do like Captain America in general, and I like some of those characters. Fantastic Four. Super excited about that. I just want them to announce the goddamn actors already. But I'm just talking about the MCU now in general. But excited about relatively the future more than I have been, at least these past few movies and shows. Glad Loki wrapped up. I don't know if it was really as solid as the first season, but it was a good, enjoyable watch, if nothing else. Our third review, keeping with the superhero context after this, I promise we're done with superheroes, but this is an animated venture. So we did an independent superhero there with Gen V. Then we did a Marvel with Loki. Now we're doing DC with their new movie, Justice League Warworld. So I think I'm going to just give the basic plot here, because it's good. Not even the plot, but just the threads, kind of, right? Because it's a few vignettes of different characters. It's with the Trinity. It goes Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, and they're all in different times doing different things, but you're kind of slowly finding out something's not right. And there's clues to what's happening, builds on each one until it kind of finally breaks open. They're using a lot of classic, interesting DC characters, which is pretty cool. They do that, I think, a lot in the DC animation because they can't stretch that muscle. And use those characters as much in live action, where you really got to pander to the wider audience of not comic book nerds. But here you can, right? So the first vignette is Wonder Woman. We are set in the Old West. It's just classic Old West stories, to be honest. She's defending a town against some burglars. Who doesn't love a good Old West story, right? She's actually against Jonah Hex. It's interesting, Jonah Hex is really a bad guy in this one. Jonah Hex is generally a good guy, but he is something of like a bounty hunter, but more towards justice. He's on the side of the law, I guess, here. And he because these people are not complying with orders from the government or whatever. So I guess you can just call it some of that. Nothing special, but it is cool. Wonder Woman is kicking butt out there. It's really gory. At the end, they do not hold back. There's some rough stuff. And there's not too much rough stuff, I think, throughout the rest of it. But some of it's pretty wild. They are not holding back, which I appreciate. Then we move on to Batman's vignette. He is in this kind of barbarian fantasy type world. The old DC character that I don't even really know much about. I think I vaguely remember him from something. His name is Warlord. Again, he's basically just a barbarian. He's a king, I think, so a barbarian king. And I don't know, they're just figuring out some stuff. They gotta defeat a wizard and go on a quest. Batman has to lead Warlord and his friends there. Batman is a mercenary, and he's just this really pessimistic, cold-blooded character. It's odd. You know, he's like, just screw the whole world, I don't really care, and he's betraying people and leaving people to die and stuff. It's odd because in the first one, Wonder Woman is, she's not Wonder Woman, but she has a lot of the same traits as Wonder Woman. And we haven't gotten to it yet, but we'll talk about it. The next one's Superman again. He's not Superman, but he has the same traits and everything. This Batman is really not. You know, I mean, he's super okay with killing, and he's like entirely pessimistic. I mean, you have to be hopeful to be Batman, to just do the same thing over and over again. And he just betrays everyone. That's not really Batman's character. That was an odd choice there, I think. I don't know what that was about. I'll touch on it a little bit later because of the nature of who his Batman is and such. But then we get to the end, and they find the wizard dragon. He turns into a dragon. Wonder Woman shows up, so they're folding these guys in as they're moving along. And then this, even though the wizard can turn into a dragon and has actual magic, he just finds a gun and he starts shooting people. Very weird. That's a weird choice in general. I mean, that's not going to be as effective as turning into a giant dragon and like shooting fireballs and stuff. So first of all, odd. I don't know if he has a different conception of what this does. But then you're thinking, you know, how is there just a gun on this barbarian world? So I suppose it's supposed to be some kind of post-apocalyptic realm. I suppose that makes sense. Those ideas are pretty cool. You know, the one that did that really well was Adventure Time, I think. I know that's a little bit of a weird one, but that does it really good. There's great episodes with the Ice King and the Vampire Girl. But there's a bunch of different shows and movies that do the post-apocalyptic world is an interesting notion, because you really have to play with what was gone before, and I mean, you don't have to go into it too much, explain what actually happened, but you have to find out where the world was at the end of it, and what happened and what that means for now. Generally, it's pretty despairing. You know, we're not going too much into this world because it's just a little vignette. But I get it's more of just like a nod than anything else. It's fascinating. I do like a good story like that. And then, I mean, one of the best post-apocalyptic stories, and one of the best also unveiling that is Planet of the Apes. Obviously, you know, the big Statue of Liberty. Charlton Heston realizes that this is Earth. This is his Earth, just in the future. That was awesome. Just wanted to throw that in there. But then we are working towards our final vignette with Superman. This is in the 50s, so it's like a detective noir deal with the Red Scare, with the fear of communism and such, and aliens. Roswell, the rise of that fear of aliens and stuff. It's all black and white, which is pretty fascinating. It deals with Faraday, a kind of military guy. He's in the DC New Frontier. I think he's from some other stuff as well. Snapper Carr is thrown in that. He was just a ride-along character for the Justice League back in the day. Just pulling some more classic DC characters. Pretty cool. This one's pretty quick. Aliens turn out to be white Martians, and they're just chasing them around and stuff. Batman and Wonder Woman show up relatively early. There's some intrigue and some, I don't know, who's an alien and such, and then they figure it out. And then we get the final unveiling when we find Martian Manhunter strapped to a chair, and then we find out that they're all being psychically controlled, being shown these different things because they are on, surprise, surprise, Warworld. I bet that came to a shocker to a lot of viewers. Obviously being sarcastic. Obviously the title was Warworld. There, even at the very beginning, even with Wonder Woman, then going on, the characters were saying, you know, I don't know who I am, I don't know my name, I don't really know what's going on, something was clearly wrong, and then you're rolling in each character to the next one, it's building to something. But yeah, then we wake up on Warworld, we find that they are being kind of tortured and run through these mental worlds in the ringer to ape off their fear that powers Warworld or something like that. Mongol is here. Obviously, Mongol is here. I got a weird skinny design. Don't love that. My Mongol is definitely the big scary one. You know, from the that great Alan Moore story, for the man who has everything. That's an awesome one. Comic book, Justice League show and adaptation. Watch one of those. Awesome. Then his right hand man. It just has to be like. It has to be Lobo. I freaking hate Lobo. that might be, I don't know, an unpopular opinion. It seems that people like Lobo for some odd reason. Jason Momoa is now switching from Aquaman to Lobo. I just think he ruins everything. You know, he's a terrible, opposite to Superman. He works with some other people, but he's a Superman villain. He's just brash and terrible. I don't want to see that. You know, I want to see the cold, calculated, whatever. You got to be powerful, I guess. That's Lobo's thing. When he's just all powerful, he can't be beat. He's DC's Deadpool, basically. But he's just awful. He's completely unlikable. He has a stupid design. He never has a good motivation. He's just doing dumb stuff. I honestly hate when he comes in. I like Deadpool, but Deadpool has his place. I guess Lobo has his place somewhere, but it's far away from me in any of my stories. Then we get Martian Manhunter's explanation of what's really going on. He's been trapped. He's been there for lifetimes. I guess he's been there for a very long time doing all this stuff, but he finally got a little... I guess technically how this went is that he put a thought into Lobo's head to let Martian Manhunter put some thoughts into his Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman's heads to break them out of their code or whatever. It doesn't matter. Either way, they're free, and they're wrecking shop, and they're trying to take over and take down Warworld. They don't remember who they are for too long. Really annoying. They pull down their costumes, and I think they kind of remember what's going on. But then you find out that they're not our Trinity. They are Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman from different times and different worlds and stuff, which is why you can take some liberties with some of these other ones, specifically Batman, I suppose. Wonder Woman seems to be a really older one. You know, Wonder Woman's never really had too much of a problem with killing, but she's pretty ruthless in this one. She has a really thick Amazon accent, which isn't in a lot of the new ones. Superman, I guess, is a really new Superman, really bright-eyed and new to the whole game. I don't know if that really matters. I think Batman is more weathered, seen more years. He's maybe a little bit more brutal. He doesn't really seem it after you get out of his old vignette where he's killing people and stuff, which is why I still think there's a disconnect there. But that little twist is interesting. They start to remember. They're figuring stuff out. There's this little cool idea where the DNA sequence or the key to controlling Warworld is in the DNA sequences of green and white Martians. Martian Manhunter is the last green one ever in the whole multiverse or something, I guess. I don't know, probably not. But they meld together and they can figure it out. But John takes control and he puts it to self-destruct, stopping, Mongol's reign of tyranny. And do they even get people off? I think they get some people off, but there's a lot of people there who are probably kind of innocently dying, but you gotta end his reign of tyranny either way, right? And then, John has this really cool moment at the end where he's just, you tell him, John, Martian Manhunter is relatively underused. People always tell him that, he's the guard the base guy, he's basically just a headset in everyone's mind, but he's so much more, right? He's a great, compelling backstory of his, being transported to Earth and not knowing how to get back for a while, and then his whole family being annihilated, and the racism between the white and the green Martians. And he's basically as strong as Superman. He's got the strength and the flight and the eyes and everything, but he also has intangibility. He can change his density, and he can morph to different creatures and people and stuff. I mean, he's incredibly powerful. You have to be careful how he's used, but he's a powerhouse, and he should have more fans. I think Martian Manhunter should have more fans than he does. I think there's probably a good amount of you guys out there, but it should be louder. Then at the very end, some lady grabs this Trinity and saves them from the self-destructing Warworld, and this whole thing is just a backdoor for a new Crisis movie. I guess low-key lame. Whatever, that's fine. It's not like this was a big story or really meant anything along those lines, but a little lame. Maybe more will come out of it, so I'll hold my judgment. Overall, a really cool idea. It got maybe a little derailed. The whole taking down Warworld was a lot really fast, but not bad. One piece that I do think is that how Batman was certainly didn't help, I think, everything. But that second vignette on the whole barbarian fantasy world was just, I think, really devoid from the rest of them, right? The other one was in the 50s, and the other one was in the Old West. I think you had to, it didn't jive well. It probably would have been better if they were all in actual history. I mean, my one that I'm thinking of is World War II with Sergeant Rock. You know, I mean, that's a great DC character there, an old DC character that you can pull from. There's other ones, I'm sure, and I think some of them would have been better. I mean, I guess if it's post-apocalyptic, it is in this same history. It's just in the future. But I don't know if it jives with the other ones. I think that's a little disconcerting. But it's supposed to be a little disconcerting moving from one to the other. So maybe it was deliberate. Didn't take away anything. Didn't take away from anything that much. But it was just a thought that I had. Overall, the vignette ideas were really fun. DC can do that because they have so much volume, so much history to grab from all these Elseworlds and such. But I really enjoyed just this style of how they did it. They should do more. I would appreciate if they did more of this. Our fourth review here, off the superhero train, or working with a movie that just came out, a new release. This is Priscilla. So it is obviously a biopic of Priscilla Presley, the wife of Elvis Presley. A lot of it is formed around Elvis's career. So there's that. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a while here. So we start out with her meeting in Germany when Elvis was in the military. It's on a military base. She's a child of a military man, so she's on the base. She's in ninth grade when they meet. I mean, it's a biopic. They take some biopics. We'll talk about that too. But this part is true. Ninth grade. So she is 15, I think. This is definitely a different time, certainly. But still a little odd. Some of it seems a little creepy. There's some creepiness from Elvis here early on, but he's sweet here and there, at least at the beginning. But we'll see as we move along here. I'm not going to go through every little piece here. Some of you, or most of you, probably know at least the high points. Again, it's just kind of going along the career of Elvis Presley. A lot of it, her relationship with Priscilla from her point of view there. It was interesting after just a little bit ago watching Austin Butler's Elvis movie recently, just kind of comparing and contrasting, because again, they are from different perspectives. I do think I like Austin Butler's Elvis a little bit better than this one, but at least this one was able to lose the accent after he was done filming there. But so the person of Elvis Presley obviously was a rock star, was a playboy, was a drugged up madman for most of it. But this movie really portrays him as bipolar, I think is the best word there. He just goes from, really sweet and nice to off the walls. I mean, they're definitely portraying him as having some serious anger issues here, and even in both, I guess, the highs and the lows, being pretty manipulative. Some of it is probably true. I believe some of it, certainly. But we do have to keep in mind that it's also from Priscilla's perspective. Priscilla produced this movie. I think it was from her autobiography. And I'm sure that she was taken advantage of in some ways. I mean, she was so young, just kind of swept off of her feet there. But in this one, the actress, at least, really portrays Priscilla as just the most naive, just innocent person ever. And it seems like none of it is her fault. I don't know if that is the whole truth, but that is what we were given here. The movie showed, again, just a few little beats here. I'm not going to go through everything, but some highlights. Showed that Elvis waited a really long time to have sex with Priscilla. I guess it wasn't until they got married, I think. She was probably 18 or whatever, so it wasn't that long, but it was 3 years or something. But then he really didn't want to have sex with her a lot after that. And she was a woman with needs and everything, and she was trying to tell him that, and he just was not into it. I don't know why that was, obviously, because Elvis had a lot of partners throughout his rock star life. Just an odd relationship between these two people in this odd marriage and stuff, right? I mean, again, they hinted at, I suppose, they did show once or twice, really blatantly, Elvis's infidelity. But for a lot of it, they hid it. You knew it was happening, and it was with the headlines and stuff, but he was denying it. Some of it is certainly it's from Priscilla's perspective, so she's not seeing some of it. But then in the end, you do see him in bed with another woman. So some of those were kind of fascinating. Another thing they hid was the Colonel. From that Austin Butler movie, the Colonel was a very big character, but certainly prominent in Elvis's life. So that was a decision. They mentioned him, but I don't think he ever showed up on screen, and his impact on the overall story and film itself was pretty minimal. Some of that must have been just not wanting to overshadow the focus on the relationship between Priscilla and Elvis. But just a note. So then this movie really, I don't know what abruptly, but a little bit abruptly, ends with Priscilla leaving Elvis. You know what I mean? Obviously the whole movie is showing their relationship and building up to when she can get the courage or whatever to finally leave him. But I think it's a weird choice. Obviously, Priscilla produced the movie and must have had a pretty big hand in it. So it was her choice to do it. So there's not much I can say. But it just seemed like ending it right there, once the relationship with Elvis was gone, the movie was over, really showed how and highlighted how and how Priscilla's life really only mattered because of Elvis. It was so integrally tied with Elvis. If it was me, or really if I was just making a biopic about a person like that, I would want to show their life after Elvis, who they were as a person, who they became and such. And there's more even with Elvis, to be honest. So I guess that's why maybe it's okay, because they go back and forth a little bit. I think she comes back to him for a while, and then obviously when Elvis dies, that's some interesting interplay and stuff that I want to see. So that maybe eliminates that aspect, the negatives of it a little bit. But I wonder if that was deliberate. It seems a lot like that it's just portraying Elvis as this manipulative person who took advantage of Priscilla in a lot of ways. Certainly there was some good times and some high moments and some love there, but that he was just a really destructive person. And again, it seemed to take away from the character, the person of Priscilla. But who am I to say? It was good. It was better than I thought. The missus took me to see this. This was not really my choice, but I figured I'd share it because I watched it. It wasn't fantastic, but it was good. It was actually better than I thought. The interplay and the emotion of many of the characters in the situation was good. I kind of wish there was more Elvis music and such, but it's not an Elvis movie. It's Priscilla's movie. And a good thing to bring your girlfriend to, or your wife to, or your significant other in general. I don't know if I would have watched this by myself, but I'm glad I did. It was a good watch. Our penultimate review here is not new. We're getting away from the new releases here. This is pretty old. I actually don't remember the date, but I think it is early 2000s, I want to say. So this is the movie The Imitation Game. So this is about cracking the Enigma code in World War II, the code that Germany was doing to hide the meaning of their messages over radio, because back then you couldn't really control what was or where things were being sent. It was just in the air and it was picking up the signals, so you needed to code the messages and then you decode it later. And there was this Enigma machine that had, they called it, I think it was like 590 million, something like that, combinations. So it was almost impossible to decipher. And this is the story of the British scientists who did so here. This movie really tackles a underappreciated part of World War II in specific and warfare in general. Intelligence is super important, crucial to any warfare exploits and any expedition that you're going to do. If you don't have a good intelligence, usually if you don't have better intelligence than the other side, you are not going to be successful, because it really allows you to change and adapt to secrets and terrains and problems, communication and everything. You can't understate the importance, and this movie really appreciates that. Another little aspect that specifically World War II it shows, really like not a movie that I have seen at least, is the Blitzkrieg of London. It's pretty quick. It's not a focus of the movie, but they are on the English homeland, so it certainly has to play a part. Just showing the palpable fear of that time for so long, something like approaching a year or more than a year. The citizens of London lived in fear of bombs just being dropped on their heads all the time. Their city was just absolutely devastated every other day, and they had to run down to the bomb shelters at a moment's notice, just always living in that constant uncomfortableness, never being able to just settle down. And then also having to live your life and go to work and deal with your family while all this is happening. I mean, the British people, the London citizens stayed really strong, like not too many people have in the history of the world. So I'm glad this movie touched on that aspect as well. So the main actor of this, playing Alan Turing, is Benedict Cumberbatch, who is a great actor. He is very talented. You don't get to see it as often, I don't think, in his more prominent roles nowadays. Doctor Strange being the obvious one, but he has got some chops, man, and in this one, he stretches him. The team of scientists that are working on this after Benedict Cumberbatch sends a letter to Winston Churchill because he's not in charge, to make him in charge, and then he does, because he's a good idea, or whatever, and he's got his team, and then he brings in Keira Knightley, which it was pretty progressive back then to get a woman involved in this. We're going to talk about some of the accuracy of this movie later, but I'm going to just, aside from that, really cool message that a woman is able to do the same things that men does, because obviously it's not that, these freaks, for better words, they're not freaks, but really intelligent geniuses, prodigies, have a lot less in common with us than they do with other prodigies that are women, right? The brain divide, the way they're thinking, is a much bigger divide than the genders, and Benedict Cumberbatch recognizes this, which is pretty cool. And then all of the people hate him in all of Alan Turing's colleagues hate him in this because he's terrible. And Keira Knightley helps him really bridge the gaps. Of course, who would have thought it takes a woman's touch? But it's really nice. They start becoming friends and everything, and they start really pushing it along. There's this part, I'll talk about it again too, where she needs to leave because her parents are like, "What are you doing?" With a woman, and Alan Turing agrees to marry her, even though he's gay, and there's pretty good emotion there as well. Just dropping those dimes on you, making it more exciting, more dramatic to watch. And then there's a eureka moment that happens when they finally figure out how to decrypt what they're doing. They have to do it because they know that there's going to be a few words in each message this one they call like the first message of the day, which is the weather. So they know it's going to be like weather, and I think Heil Hitler are the two ones that they can put in. So they already have some letters that they can then work on. So it makes the machine goes faster. They can decode it faster because it was working, but it just wasn't decoding fast enough. But it was a great eureka moment. They were just at the bar having this conversation. It came up really naturally, and then they just all ran out the bar, and they're doing all this, and they're getting really excited. Great. I'm skipping to the end. It feels like I'm skipping to the end, but there's a lot more of this movie after they figure this out. You think it's going to be great, but then it's not. It takes a dark turn, and you think they would have known this, or it would have been on their heads, or most of them being so smart they would have figured it out. But basically what happens, and it's, just a terrible choice for anyone to have to make, right, is that there's two steps to this process, what they're doing. First you have to actually learn how to decode the messages, right? Did that, yay, that was hard enough. But then two, you need to also give the information out very sparingly and selectively so that the other side, Nazi Germany in this case, doesn't know that you've broken their code, because if they do, then they'll change it, right? So unfortunately, they have to let people die and let missions go bad and do just enough, I think is what they say, to end the war and allow the Allies to win without Germany getting suspicion and all of their hard work going to naught, which is pretty whack. Those type of decisions would drive any sane man crazy. It would. I don't know if I could make decisions like that. And you see the wear and tear on them. It's really memorialized in this one scene where, I think this is made up as well, but one of their members in their little scientific group here, the first one, which, come on, so coincidental. The first time they decode it, they figure out that there's a convoy that's about to be attacked by the Germans, and they have discussion that they can't do it, that they have to be selective about it. But it turns out that on this boat is this guy's brother who's serving in there, and he's gonna die. I don't even know if they really explain that he dies or not, but they say they can't do it. A little silly, he says, we'll just do it this one time so we can save my brother, and then we'll figure out how to do it sparingly. Not a terrible point. It's just one time. They're probably not gonna get suspicious that one time. But you're dealing with really high stakes with the entirety of the war, with the entirety of the world, with millions of lives. So I suppose in some ways I understand. It was a good tool to explain the gravity of this situation. So I want to add that I did do, not a lot, but a little bit of research into this. And as I was mentioning, with the historical accuracy, this movie takes quite a lot of liberties. A little bit, unfortunately, to make it more dramatic and such. But the basic plot is still correct. The basic story is still correct. I'll talk about some of the story after that. But I want to talk about some of the historically inaccurate, but also really great plot points that happen in this movie, which makes it, I think, such a good movie, but maybe not the most accurate movie. So one is that in his group, there's this idea of a Soviet spy. It turns out his friend is a Soviet spy. It finds it with his Bible, and there's this code that they found, and the cipher was something that he knew, or something to that effect. He already told this guy that he was gay, so they went back and forth. They're like, if you expose me, I'll expose you, because being gay back then, indecency, was unfortunately a crime. And then the MI6 agent that they're working with, they actually give the information so that they pass on just the little bit amount of information to the UK and everything so that they can figure it out. It turns out that he knew that this person was a Soviet spy, and that he deliberately put him in there because he knew that the UK government would not give all of the information that the Soviet government needed to help them win the war, because they were on the same side. Pooh, that's pretty crazy. That was Mark Strong, by the way, that MI6 agent. Always good to see him. But just levels and levels here. Pretty great for a movie, at least. The last little piece, which again is seemingly not too historically accurate, is that the boy, again, Alan Turing, is gay, that he loved as a child, and that helped him really to get his love of decoding, which again is not true, but who he named his machine after, at least nicknamed it Christopher, died really young. Unfortunately, that did happen. They don't know exactly if they were romantically involved or anything, but this movie made it explicitly clear that they were romantically involved. But they kept going back to flashbacks as a kid, and this Christopher helping him, and then he named the machine after Christopher. So it was pretty obvious. I think you kind of knew what was happening, but when it did come, it emotionally hit pretty hard. Just right off of the heels of that, going back and forth. So they had going back to the present, or the past, as a child in university, when he was with this kid that he loved, and getting his ambition for decoding, and then in what was basically our present, the main crux of the war in main crux of the movie in World War II, and then the future with a detective who is investigating Alan Turing in the 50s, I think it is about. So yeah, that dynamic of going back from the past, present, and future worked really well. That could probably, and I've seen it before, not probably, could absolutely get really muddled, really complicated, but they kept everything in check. They kept everything neat and ordered, and weaving in and out really well. So great effect there. Moving into that future, the detective thinks he's a Soviet spy, unfortunately uncovers that Alan Turing is gay, and as I said, indecency is still a crime back then in the 50s. So he doesn't even really want to. Alan Turing actually tells him his whole story, and the detective feels really bad about it. So that's tough. He doesn't want to arrest him, but there's nothing he can do now. He already passed along to his superiors. But he's convicted of being gay. Instead of going to jail, he agrees to do some hormonal therapy to cure his gayness. I mean, just barbaric that they used to do that. I mean, it's crazy because there's been gay and even transgender. They didn't have the surgery and the hormones and stuff that we do have now. But there's people who were gay and who had different gender identities, expressed different gender identities throughout history. I mean, even back to Socrates in so long ago in BC. It's crazy how different societies deal with that in drastically different ways. Some are extremely accepting, and some are just terrible about it. Unfortunately, a lot of that has to do with religion, the Abrahamic religions in specific. Really, really sad. Glad we live in a world that is a lot more accepting and forgiving and tolerating of that, and that we have these laws and people that understand that people are different in different ways, so that's important. But getting off track, unfortunately, Alan Turing, not too long after this, takes his own life, or at least it seemed like he took his own life. I don't know if they said it there, but it was from cyanide poisoning in my research. I guess there's not some crazy strong links between the hormones and his suicide. The movie ties an explicit thread between these two events. But even if it wasn't the exact immediate cause, it must have had an effect. It certainly did not help. So extremely, extremely unfortunate. It's these, war heroes who have such sad lives a lot of the time. I just saw Oppenheimer recently. I talked about on this channel. Very similar, him getting convicted of being a Soviet spy, a communist, socialist, whatever you want to call it. There's some ideas of Churchill getting kind of booted out of office and dealing with a tough life. Roosevelt dying young, and there's obviously so many different wars, so many different people, but there's something definitely about tragedy and really important people who do unbelievable things in war that unfortunately don't give the praise and aren't given the praise and the lives that they deserve. I want to wrap this review off with acknowledging that Alan Turing is probably one of the most influential men that not too many people have heard of. I'm sure people do know who he was. it seems that he is given a lot of credit now. But me, being a pretty large history buff, really didn't know who he was. I know about the Enigma program, and cracking the Enigma code, but I didn't really know about him specifically. Really crazy. He should be known. His name should be known. His accomplishments should be known by more people and celebrated more widely. Maybe this video does a small part towards that goal. But it was estimated, it said it in there, and I saw it in other more historically focused media, is that his work and the work of all his fellow scientists probably shortened the war by several years. It seems to think that as much as 2 to 3 years, saving millions of lives. I think the number they put on it was 14, 15, something like that. Even if it was less than that, if it was just a few million. I mean, just think of the grave impact that person had on the world. Absolutely crazy. And the other crazy thing is that this whole program, how they did it, that they cracked the Enigma code during World War II, the British, was secret for a very long time, for decades. It seemed that it was coming out maybe somewhere in the 70s, but really wasn't entirely known until the 90s, about 50 years later. It's a long time to keep such a secret. Obviously, he died young. I'm sure a lot of the other ones really died without getting their recognition, which sometimes happens in the name of national security and stuff, for better or for worse. But just fantastic. Absolutely crazy. This was a wonderful movie, beautifully done. Absolutely crazy. Great topic to do it on. Great person to focus it on. I'm gonna buy this for the collection. Definitely, that is going in there. I knew about this for a while. I've been wanting to watch it for a few years now. It was something about it. I thought it was going to be good. I was right. So, I was not even right. It was way better than I thought. I thought it was going to be good. It was great. So please go watch this if you're a history buff. If you're not, it was so good. It really left me speechless for a while. I was thinking about it. I actually just watched it last night, but it got me up, kept me up, thinking about it for a long time. A lot of thoughts running through my head. So please give this a watch. Out of all of these, really the highest recommended. For our final review, we are almost done. Throwing it back old school. I finally have a prop for this one. The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, right? The philosopher emperor. It's a pretty cool little binding here, right? I again watched or listened to it on Audible. I don't think it changed anything. Just throwing out, I love audiobooks really good. Again, I'm not doing Audible. I don't know if I said that the last time. I'm now doing it free through my public library. So please do that. But this was very, very interesting. Obviously, this was written a very long time ago. You can really feel the history. Just on a surface level, there's a lot of they and thou and these in this. So you can feel its age. And people don't write like that too much nowadays. But really, it's only been relatively recently that we haven't written like that. But it's obvious that it's older. It's really cool that that Marcus Aurelius talks about his family and his job as emperor and his lives and the city and his friends and just mundane things. So you're also able to get a really good picture, really good notion of what life was back then in the Roman Empire. That was a good little notion, a good little extra after all of this, because we're going to talk about what this actually is mostly comprised of. But aside from feeling the history and being so old, it is really remarkable. I think we've talked about this in the past. Still, how relevant and relatable a lot of this is. That's what a good piece is. Hundreds or thousands of years that it was written ago, but still in the modern age, we can pick it up. We can relate it to our normal lives. We can use the lessons that it teaches us still as universal lessons. that's the trademark of a really good piece of writing. A big part of this, most of this, these meditations, obviously, we're meditating inward vibes, is just motivational things. To be honest, that's not giving it as much credit. That's kind of really straw manning it, but it's true. It's a lot of, hard work pays off, and moderation is good. The only way that humanity and society functions is through hard work, and you have to enjoy good things that are out there, but you can't enjoy them too much because they will destroy your life. That was a lot of it. And also the same ideas of, you're a part of the universe. You came from the universe. You're going to return to the universe. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are who you're supposed to be. You're surrounded by who you're supposed to be. If you just listen to the universe and do what speaks to you, can find your purpose and be happy and such, which is all good. It certainly got me thinking a little bit. This is a famous one, so maybe not for everyone, but it was cool. So with these motivations and meditations and thought experiments and such, the Marcus Aurelius does so he does certainly get some interesting conclusions from foundations and just logically thinking through what happens, the consequences of certain actions and such. And who am I to critique, what a famous piece of work that a person who was much smarter than me devoted his life to. But I think there was certainly some conclusions that were built on some less than stable foundations. The obvious ones that these are coming from is religion. Back then, they were pagan, working with their Greek religions. But this is also past AD, so there's Christianity is seeping in a little bit, but there's a lot of pagan stuff, and just science and understanding the world. So a few ideas of that's not how that works. So your conclusion is basically junk. Some of it is more just thinking about how humans work and how humans interact. So doesn't really suffer from those difficulties, but there's some that absolutely do. Basically, I guess what we want to just say from that, the conclusion I could draw from a fact experiment is that your inevitable ideas and conclusions, I'm using the word conclusions a lot, but that is okay. And conclusions are only strong as the foundations they are built on. So I think you could probably stretch that into a lot of modern day issues. Whatever you want to talk about, I will leave that to you. You can mold the clay. But I think it's very true, and it's something that we should keep in mind as we read different things, hear different opinions, not get too caught up in what someone's saying just because they say it. What is their conclusions? What is their conclusion built off of, right? But we're done. That is the 6 reviews I have for us today. I think that was pretty strong. I promised last time that this was going to be a little bit better, a little bit more up to date. These ones that we're talking about, Loki, Gen V, Priscilla, these are all in the movie theaters now, what people are watching and paying attention to, and what's in the popular zeitgeist, in the popular water cooler conversation. So I'm glad I was able to do that. Gave me a little bit more clickbait, probably going to be on the thumbnail. Get a few more views so we can drag him in and deal with some of these other old things, right, that are really cool and that I think are important, that I enjoy reviewing as well. I don't really know too much of what's coming up for next time. I think it'll definitely be after Thanksgiving. Before I do another reviews, I got a good topics coming up for Thanksgiving. But we'll see what I'm looking towards. I think it's going to be maybe some more books and comics along with whatever we're seeing. I got to see if I can get Blue Beetle at some point. It's not on HBO. Maybe I'll just do it on Amazon. Might watch the Marvels. I don't really want to watch the Marvels too much, but it might be a good idea to get it up here. And some good Thanksgiving is when some great movies come out. We'll see if those make it in here. But as always, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for allowing me to just talk about some of the things that are interesting me, keeping my mind going, entertaining me in my spare time. So again, thank you so much. That is it for me. Signing off.